Ever noticed something weird about Africa? It's packed with lions, elephants, giraffes, even penguins chilling on the coast. But bears? Nope, not a single one. And that's pretty bizarre if you think about it, because bears are like nature's ultimate survivors. They roam nearly every corner of the planet, from the icy Arctic to steamy tropical jungles. Yet somehow, Africa, the continent with the world's most iconic wildlife, has 0 bears today. But here's the plot twist. Africa actually did have a bear once. Yep, you heard me right. A real native African bear. It lived in the forests and mountains of North Africa, hanging around where you'd now find Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia. It was called the Atlas bear, a slightly smaller cousin of the mighty brown bear we still have roaming across Europe and North America. So what happened? How did an entire continent lose its only bear? Well, to put it bluntly, we happened. Humans showed up and did what we've always been disturbingly good at, wiping out wildlife. Let's rewind a bit to Roman times. Yeah, those guys again. The Romans absolutely loved exotic animals, especially for entertainment. Lions fighting gladiators, elephants paraded through cities, and unfortunately for our Atlas bear, a bear in the Colosseum was a guaranteed crowd pleaser. So hundreds, probably thousands of these African bears were captured, shipped off, and forced into gladiator arenas all over the Roman Empire. Not exactly a fair fight. But even after Rome fell, things didn't exactly get better for the Atlas bear. As human populations grew across North Africa, forests shrank. People cleared land for farming, cut down trees for wood, and hunted pretty much anything that threatened their livestock. Bears were seen as pests, dangerous predators messing with sheep and goats. And honestly, you can't exactly blame a farmer in the 1700s for defending his flock from a hungry bear, right? By the 1800s, sightings became rare, then vanished entirely. The last confirmed Atlas bear was killed somewhere around the late 1800s. And just like that, Africa's only native bear species was gone, barely leaving a footprint behind. So we know humans wiped out Africa's only bear, and that's pretty clear. But let's pause for a second and consider something intriguing. What if bears were to return one day? Could they even survive in today's Atlas Mountains? Or would it be just another wildlife disaster waiting to happen? Even though humans have changed the landscape a lot, the Atlas Mountains are still more bear-friendly than you'd expect. There are big stretches of cedar and pine forests, rugged terrain, and plenty of spots where a bear could do typical bear things. Diet-wise, bears here would have no trouble. The mountains still offer plenty of natural food: berries, nuts, wild fruits, roots, and insects. And remember, bears aren't picky eaters. They're nature's ultimate scavengers and foragers. If it's edible and not nailed down, they'll probably eat it. But bears also need protein, right? Well, thankfully, or maybe unfortunately, depending on who you ask, there are rabbits, rodents, wild boar, and even livestock scattered around. Now, livestock could be a problem, because farmers generally don't appreciate bears dining on their sheep or goats, but we'll touch on human-wildlife conflict a bit later. What about competitors? Well, there are leopards and hyenas still roaming these mountains, but honestly, neither would pose a serious threat to a healthy bear. In fact, it's more likely that bears would become top predators themselves, potentially pushing other predators around. And climate-wise, the Atlas Mountains offer the perfect conditions. Warm summers, snowy winters at higher elevations, basically exactly what European brown bears deal with every single year without breaking stride. But we can't ignore the human factor. Villages, farms, roads, and growing tourism mean the Atlas Mountains aren't exactly untouched wilderness anymore. A bear population here would require careful management to avoid becoming a neighborhood menace. Alright, so let's say we all agree the Atlas Mountains could handle having bears again. The forests are decent, the food is there, the climate works. Cool. So now comes the big messy question. Should we actually do it? And more importantly, how? Because here's the catch. The Atlas bear is gone, extinct. We don't have its DNA sitting in a lab freezer somewhere just waiting for a Jurassic Park moment. No complete skeletons with perfect genetic material. Nothing. If we wanted to bring it back, we'd be guessing. And that opens a huge can of worms. Now, some people have suggested rewilding the area with regular brown bears, like just take some bears from Europe, say from the Pyrenees or the Carpathians, and plop them into North Africa. Same species, just a different subspecies. Would that be close enough? Well, kind of. Genetically, the Atlas bear was a subspecies of the brown bear, Ursus arctos, so it's not like we'd be introducing aliens here. It'd be more like a close cousin coming back after a really long vacation. A chunky, furry, slightly grumpy cousin. But here's where it gets tricky. If we go with modern brown bears, we're not really bringing back the Atlas bear. We're introducing a different bear into its former range and calling it close enough. Some conservationists would be totally fine with that, especially if the goal is to restore the lost role of a large omnivore in the ecosystem. Bears help manage prey populations, spread seeds, shape forest growth, you name it. Even if it's not the exact bear we lost, it could still do the job. Others, though, aren't so convinced. They argue that without the Atlas bear's exact genetics, culture, and behavior, we're just playing dress-up with a European bear in African clothes. And honestly, they're not wrong. No one's ever reintroduced brown bears into a continent that's been bear-free for over a century, let alone into a region where human expansion and farming have seriously changed the landscape. So that brings us to the other option, trying to recreate the actual Atlas bear. Now we're entering the wild world of synthetic biology and de-extinction science. We'd need to recover DNA from old remains, like bones, teeth, or mummified tissue, and then use that to edit the genome of a closely related brown bear. Basically, a genetic remix. But again, we've got problems. First, we don't even have usable Atlas bear DNA. Not yet, anyway. Most of what we found is either too degraded or incomplete. So unless someone stumbles across a frozen bear perfectly preserved in a cave in Morocco, which, hey, never say never, the whole de-extinction thing is more dream than reality right now. And even if the science catches up, would it really be worth it? Reviving a species that humans wiped out is poetic, sure, but it's also expensive, complicated, and full of unknowns. Would the new Atlas bear behave like the old one? Would it survive in a modern world that's way louder, more crowded, and honestly, more dangerous than anything it ever knew? Okay, let's say the stars align. We've done the research, built local support, and somehow made the decision to reintroduce bears into the Atlas Mountains. Whether that's modern brown bears or one day a recreated version of the Atlas bear. What would that actually look like on the ground? First off, it wouldn't be some dramatic release where a helicopter flies in and a bear sprints off into the wild like a movie. No, this would be slow, methodical, probably a bit boring, honestly. And that's a good thing. Success in conservation isn't loud. It's quiet, steady progress. You'd start with a small number of bears, maybe a few individuals fitted with GPS collars, released into the most remote, forested parts of the range. Somewhere with minimal human presence, lots of natural food, and space to roam. No tourists, no towns, just trees, cliffs, and quiet. Meanwhile, on the human side, you'd need serious prep work. Education programs for local communities, explaining why bears are coming back. Clear rules about what to do if you encounter one. Compensation funds ready in case livestock gets eaten. And most importantly, a team of wildlife monitors on standby 24/7. In case anything goes sideways. There would be setbacks, guaranteed. A bear wanders into a village, someone panics, a fence gets broken, headlines start flying. But if that team's ready, if the public's informed, and if the long-term benefits are clear, those bumps can be managed. And if it works, if the bears settle in, adapt, and start carving out territory, you'd slowly build a population over years, not months. Cubs born in the wild would grow up with no memory of cages or transport crates. They'd learn to forage, avoid humans, and reclaim the role their ancestors once played. The ecosystem would change too, probably in good ways. Bears help spread seeds, dig up soil, and naturally keep prey populations in check. Their presence might even push other predators into different patterns, balancing things out. We've seen this happen with wolves in Yellowstone. And it's not crazy to think bears could do something similar on a smaller scale. Tourism might follow, sure, but carefully, not the kind where crowds show up for selfies. The kind where you hike quietly through a mountain valley and realize a bear walked the same trail the night before. That kind of magic sticks with people, and it might just inspire more support for protecting what's left of wild Africa. Not just its lions and elephants, but the forgotten species we almost erased for good. Now, would this fix everything? Of course not. Reintroducing a bear won't reverse centuries of damage, but it could be a symbol, a statement that not everything we break is gone forever. That with patience, respect, and actual effort, wildness can return, even in places we stopped expecting it. And honestly, that kind of hope is worth something. So, what do you think? Should Africa have bears again? Let me know in the comments. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment with what you would like to see in the following videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.